After continuing their search, they discover her again, this time attempting to swallow Kara's head. Sarah fires a shot, but not directly at her, and Deborah tries to escape once more. In desperation, Sarah begs her to resist whatever is controlling her. Deborah unnaturally stretches her mouth wide, yet Sarah keeps reminding her of her identity, her daughter. At the start, Gavin, Mia, and Lewis meet with Sarah to begin filming a documentary about her mother, Deborah Logan. Sarah introduces them, and although Deborah initially appears enthusiastic, she quickly changes her mind, suggesting it might be better not to proceed. Sarah argues that sacrifices are necessary to keep the house, but Deborah refuses to continue. Eventually, Sarah persuades her to reconsider. A week later, when the crew returns, both Sarah and Deborah greet them warmly, indicating that Deborah has agreed to go ahead with the documentary. Later on, Mia explains that Alzheimer's disease not only destroys the patient, but also takes a heavy toll on the caregiver. It begins with protein accumulation in the hippocampus, killing neurons, then spreads to regions responsible for logic, senses, and perception, leading to hallucinations. As it progresses, it erases essential memories, and in its final stage, it shuts down basic functions like breathing and swallowing, ultimately causing death. The following day, Sarah recounts several incidents where Deborah left the stove on, even scorching part of the wall, clear evidence that something was wrong. Dr. Annalise states that Deborah has mild cognitive impairment, and tests indicate with 95% certainty that she is in the early stages of Alzheimer's. After her husband Dennis died from a pulmonary blood clot, Deborah raised Sarah alone and used their home as collateral to start a switchboard business, which later became successful in Exuma. Deborah proudly describes herself as the town's central hub. Through her work, she formed strong connections with many influential people, often covering for them and handling their private affairs. The documentary then emphasizes how even the simplest daily tasks become difficult for someone with Alzheimer's, turning routine activities into ongoing struggles. Deborah explains that she is doing everything possible to slow the disease's progression, despite knowing there is no cure. When her mind suddenly goes blank in the middle of a task, it causes her deep distress. One evening, Lewis films Deborah in the garden, while Mia reminds him he should be focusing on editing. Suddenly, Deborah mentions she is hungry and casually walks away. The next day, as Lewis sets up cameras, Deborah stands eerily motionless for a brief moment before quietly leaving. Soon after, Lewis hears a door slam. He goes to investigate, but when he opens it, no one is there. Later, Deborah accuses Gavin of stealing her spade. They attempt to calm her, but she grows increasingly agitated, insisting she needs it, her anger escalating. Everyone searches the house, and eventually, Mia finds the missing spade. Sarah returns it to her mother, but Deborah reacts violently, clawing at the skin on her own throat, making the situation even more disturbing. At the hospital, Dr. Annalise reveals that Deborah's Alzheimer's has rapidly progressed to the middle stage, requiring stronger medication and a mood stabilizer. On day 15, Deborah is discharged and sincerely apologizes to Gavin for her behavior that night, showing a brief moment of clarity and regret. By day 18, Lewis finds Deborah standing in the darkness. He calls out, but she doesn't respond. Shortly after, Sarah arrives and explains that Deborah believes there is an intruder outside. She shuts the window, and Deborah begins hammering it shut. That night, Deborah suddenly wakes up, gasping for air, and gets out of bed. Later, the group realizes she is missing, and panic quickly spreads. They search the house and eventually find her in the garden. Sarah rushes to calm her, but without warning, Deborah suddenly jumps up and attacks Lewis. After a tense struggle, they manage to restrain her and calm her down. While Mia cleans her hands, Deborah keeps staring at her, then comments that her daughter doesn't like manicures, adding that she never cleans her nails. Later, Gavin shows Mia a piece of footage where Deborah is seen in the kitchen and then suddenly appears on the slab without any break in the time code. They are shocked by the unexplained jump, and when they show it to Sarah, she is equally stunned, but insists it's impossible. The next day, Sarah speaks with Harris, who suggests giving Deborah a break from filming. On day 24, they show Deborah the footage. She asks if it's really her, what she was doing, and why no one stopped her. Mia explains that they tried, but she was in a fugue state. Sarah adds that Deborah had been repeatedly stabbing the ground with her spade, digging hole after hole. Overwhelmed, Deborah bursts into tears and apologizes. Sarah then mentions that Deborah kept warning her not to answer the phone, as if someone was trying to contact her. Mia suggests stopping the filming, but suddenly, Deborah lunges at Sarah and attacks him. She then seizes Gavin, and as everyone struggles to hold her back, the situation quickly escalates until Deborah collapses amid the chaos. In the following weeks, doctors run multiple tests to understand her unusual condition, but instead of answers, the mystery only deepens. A troubling infection begins to form, causing her skin to turn unnaturally scaly. Dr. Annalise suggests it could be an allergic reaction, though she admits it's highly unusual for Alzheimer's, so specialists are brought in. On day 41, the team returns to the house and finds Harris and Sarah trying to calm Deborah down. Mia quickly restrains her legs while Harris pulls something from her mouth and tosses it aside. The next day, they remove small objects around the house to prevent harm, though Deborah has no memory of the incident. Later, Sarah discovers a snake hidden behind a box. That night, Gavin enters a room to place a cross on the window and notices several paintings made by Deborah, each depicting a figure gradually moving closer to a window. He dismisses it and places the cross, but as he turns around, Deborah is suddenly standing behind him. She quietly mutters about letting all her heat out, and without warning, the window opens by itself. When he shows the footage to Mia, she brushes it off as a draft. Frustrated, Gavin demands double pay to continue, and Lewis insists he deserves the same. And as she moves, her clothes begin to slip off. Sometime after, Gavin and Lewis wake up to a strange alarm. Everyone gathers, and Sarah explains it's her mother's old switchboard system. She goes to check on Deborah, but finds her room empty. Panic spreads as they rush upstairs searching for her. Suddenly, a door slams shut, startling everyone. They enter and make their way to the attic, where they find Deborah operating the switchboard. Sarah hesitates to approach, and then Deborah speaks in a voice that clearly isn't hers, calling her an ugly thing. Moments later, the system violently short-circuits. A doctor is immediately called. After examining Deborah, she says they need to stabilize her breathing. Later, she reassures Sarah that Deborah's motor functions remain intact, but emphasizes that she urgently needs rest. She also gives Mia a short-acting sedative, explaining it is safe to use if Deborah needs to be restrained. Afterward, they inspect the switchboard and discover Deborah had been trying to connect to line 337. Mia asks Sarah to question her about it, and Sarah wonders if uncovering that memory might finally bring her peace. The next day, Gavin tells the group he extracted audio from the switchboard. He says he translated it online and plays it for them, revealing Deborah's voice speaking in French about snakes. Sarah shares this information with Harris, but he accuses them of exploiting Deborah and demands they leave the house. Later, the group reviews Deborah's old switchboard logs, but after page 336, it jumps directly to 338. The page they need has been torn out. Thinking quickly, Lewis uses charcoal to rub over the paper, revealing the missing entry, number 337, linked to the name Desjardins. They search the name online and uncover a horrifying case in which 4 young girls were brutally murdered as part of a ritual tied to an ancient Monacan belief involving a snake consuming itself. The victims, all girls at puberty, were used in a sacrifice intended to grant immortality, but the ritual required 5 victims, and only 4 bodies were ever found. Evidence later connected the crimes to a man named Henry, whose home contained snakes and ritual objects. Terminally ill, he likely had a motive, but after disappearing, he was never found, leaving his fate unknown. The next morning, Sarah asks Deborah about Henry. Deborah says the name sounds familiar, and when asked if he was a client, she believes he might have been. Sarah mentions he vanished 30 years ago, but Deborah insists he wasn't missing, he was murdered. Before she can explain further, she suddenly rushes to the bathroom. They follow her and find her collapsed on the floor, vomiting soil filled with wriggling worms. She is admitted to the hospital, where a specialist claims her symptoms align with dissociative identity disorder. Sarah insists her mother vomited worms, but the doctor dismisses it, suggesting Deborah, being a gardener, may have ingested soil. Later, Lewis sets up a camera in her hospital room to continue documenting her condition. Sarah calls Harris to discuss Henry, but he abruptly hangs up. Mia then raises a disturbing possibility. What if Harris is hiding something? She shows Sarah an article claiming a witness saw Harris near Henry's house and the crime scenes. Mia theorizes that Harris may have killed Henry, and Deborah buried that secret so deeply that it is only resurfacing now due to her deteriorating condition. Suddenly, a loud noise erupts outside. Before they can react, it happens again. Looking out, they see Harris holding a gun, firing at their van. Panicked, Gavin immediately calls the police. When officers arrive, however, they choose not to press charges against Harris. Later, overwhelmed by everything happening, Gavin decides he has had enough and quits, choosing to leave. Lewis and Mia realize Deborah is missing from her hospital room. She is soon spotted on the pediatrics floor, and it is revealed that she has abducted Kara, a young cancer patient. Panic spreads, and the hospital is placed on lockdown. Security reports that Deborah was seen leading the girl toward an abandoned section, possibly the kitchen area. As they search, they find Deborah standing inside a freezer with the girl. Dr. Annalise carefully approaches, takes Kara's hand, and manages to guide her back to safety. Meanwhile, Deborah is restrained to her bed, where she begins screaming uncontrollably, speaking in a foreign language, before breaking down into tears and eventually calming. Sarah later meets Father Vitali and asks him to perform an exorcism, but he explains that it's not something done so easily. Later on, they consult Dr. Ernst, an anthropology professor, and show him the footage of Deborah. He explains that certain cultures believe in spiritual parasites, capable of possessing vulnerable individuals. To support this, he references a case involving a Bantu mother who, after losing her son, lost her sanity and began fully imitating him, until a fire ritual eventually restored her. On day 60, Harris visits Deborah, and she begs him to end her life. He hesitates at first, but then presses a pillow over her face. As Deborah struggles to breathe, the room suddenly starts shaking violently, and the monitor is ripped from its mount, slamming directly into Harris. Sarah rushes into the room, and Harris tells her that Deborah had heard Henry on the switchboard. She discovered his plan to use Sarah as the fifth victim, which led her to attack him by driving her spade into his neck, after which they buried him alive in the yard. Sarah immediately runs outside and begins digging frantically, with Mia and Lewis helping her. After some time, they uncover Deborah's spade, realizing she had already been there before them. They search the house for the body, and after a desperate attempt, they notice something fresh and wet on the ceiling. This leads them to the attic, where they finally discover Henry's remains inside a sack. They bring the sack downstairs and prepare to burn it in the fireplace, but suddenly hear a hissing sound coming from inside. Mia carefully lifts it, only to recoil in horror as snakes begin crawling out. In panic, they throw the sack into the fire. At first, it refuses to ignite, but after a tense moment, it finally catches. Just as they turn to leave, the remains suddenly explode, violently throwing them backward. Realizing something has extinguished the fire, they rush outside, where they spot a figure standing by the window. Terrified, they run, and after stopping to catch their breath, Sarah receives a call informing her that Deborah has escaped from the hospital. Desperate and frustrated, Sarah runs back toward the house, insisting they must take the remains with them. When she arrives at the hospital, she is shocked to see blood on Deborah's bed. Footage then reveals Deborah in a fully possessed state as she breaks free from her restraints. At the same time, Kara's father is furious, as his daughter has once again been abducted by Deborah. Another clip shows a security guard attempting to stop her, but Deborah suddenly bites into his neck, before calmly walking out of the hospital with Kara. Believing Deborah has gone to Monaghan Mill, Sarah arrives there with the group and the police, where they spot her with Kara. Mia tells Linda she has a sedative ready if they can restrain Deborah. They cautiously approach and ask her to release the child, but Kara begs them not to hurt him, insisting he is kind and intends to wash her in the river. As they slowly surround Deborah, Linda manages to cuff her, while Kara keeps repeating the same words. Suddenly, Deborah spits on the officer, and in that brief moment of distraction, she breaks free and runs off. Linda and Mia instruct Lewis to get the injured officer down the mountain while they pursue Deborah. They head into the mines, searching for both Deborah and Kara. Before entering, Linda warns Sarah that whatever is inside is no longer her mother, but promises to bring her back. As Linda goes in, Sarah and Mia try to look through the windows, when a sudden gunshot echoes, starting them. Panicked, they rush inside, calling for Linda, but receive no response. After searching for a while, they find her dead, and at that moment, they hear Kara screaming and immediately follow the sound. Crawling deep into the narrow tunnels, they finally locate Deborah and cautiously move closer to sedate her. But just as they reach her, she suddenly turns and attacks, grabbing Mia and attempting to bite her until Sarah pulls her away. Deborah escapes once more with Kara, forcing them to continue the pursuit. After searching further, they find her again, this time attempting to swallow Kara's head. Sarah fires a shot, but not directly at her, and Deborah tries to flee again. Desperate, Sarah pleads with her to resist. Deborah opens her mouth unnaturally wide, but Sarah reminds her of who she is, her daughter. For a brief moment, Deborah's expression softens, returning to normal. Seizing the opportunity, Sarah injects the sedative. Deborah resists, but the drug gradually takes effect. Sarah pulls Kara away and asks Mia to look after her, then sets Henry's remains on fire. As it burns, horrifying screams echo throughout the caves. She throws the sack into a pit, where it explodes violently. After everything settles, Deborah weakly calls out Sarah's name in her normal voice. Sarah rushes to her and realizes Deborah has been badly burned in the explosion. The film then cuts to news footage, where reporters state that Deborah has been declared unfit to stand trial for Kara's abduction, as her health has rapidly deteriorated in the months following the incident. It is also revealed that Kara has recovered from her cancer and is now celebrating her 10th birthday. During an interview, when asked about her future, Kara says she has a plan, but it's a secret. As the report concludes, Kara turns toward the camera and gives a chilling smile, implying that Desjardins has now taken control of her. That's it for today's recap. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more.